So today's episode's a little different. We have a couple great folks, Miss Thary and Miss Becky. Miss Thary works with the counseling department. She's our social worker at Hoover. And Miss Becky is actually our Beacon behavioral health specialist. And they have a couple good tips in terms of how we can get ourselves back on track. We're heading to Hoover right now. And we're meeting on site because I think familiar sites do help with adjusting to some of the stressors that we were going through. So we're heading over to Hoover right now to chat with Miss Thary and Miss Becky, and we're going to record this whole conversation that we have with them to have them give us some tips on how we can get better use of our time, how to figure out how we can get out of this rut that we are in, that we might find ourselves in. Some of us might feel a little sad that we can't see our friends. Some of us might be feeling really upset with how there's a lot of things that we can't do. I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, maybe my parents, I know I am, thinking about vacations that we couldn't go to, we can't visit family. And it hits us. And again, not all of us have the ability to just leave the house and walk around or go somewhere. Who knows? Maybe you do. Maybe you do take walks with your families just around the block. Of course, safety first. We always have a mask with us. So we want to make sure that we do things in a safe manner.
My name is Ms. Thary. I'm a school social worker and a licensed clinical social worker.
My name is Ms. Becky, and I am a behavioral health specialist with Beacon program, and I'm also a licensed clinical social worker.
Yeah, we're just gonna have a conversation about mental health needs and care during shelter in place. And yeah, we hope this is useful for people. So Becky, what have you noticed when students talk to you about what's going on for them? What sorts of questions come up?
Well, a lot of it is how to balance time, how to manage their schoolwork, their classes, and trying to squeeze in some fun. I've heard a lot of anxiety just about all the differences and missing their friends as well.
Yeah. So it's really hard to see friends at this time. So I think there are ways to still stay connected with people. And so how can we still stay connected with people?
So from what I've heard, a lot of the teachers are trying to help with this, and they have breakout rooms or ice-breaking sessions to sort of, kind of relax the kids and get them to kind of feel comfortable on the Zoom squares with each other. And I think sometimes they have time where they do get to chat and talk and break into small groups.
Yeah, I think the best way still for students to stay connected is to show up to their Zoom classes and to join one of our lunch clubs, which I know is on the Hoover website. And so there's opportunities every day for students to talk to each other in a non-academic space. And I know it's still over on Zoom, but also like being able to just talk, you know, even outside of class. I think it's still really important for our kids to stay connected. And I think it also helps with routine. You talked about anxiety earlier. I know that routine can also help with depressive symptoms, anxious symptoms. Should we talk more about how to set up a routine at this time?
I think that's a good idea. And I think it starts with bedtime. Going to bed at the same time. I think we kind of get caught up in, you know, I don't have to get up and go to school tomorrow. So I know me, for one, I've been sleeping, you know, staying up a little later than normally. But going to bed at a regular time and getting up at a regular time, getting dressed, those kinds of things that we did before the shelter in place.
Yeah, so just having those same rituals in the morning and in the evenings. Again, I know that some students might not be able to access synchronized learning because of their home environments, but it's still really important to get up at the same time and try to do their classes at the same time, even if they can't be online at the same time.
I agree. And also finding that time of the day with your family structure and yourself when you can do some homework. I think, you know, when we were in the school building, sometimes kids would, you know, take an hour or so once they got home from school just to relax and kind of unwind and then jump into their schoolwork. So whatever worked for you before, if you can try to make that in your schedule now, I think, you know, that's probably a good, healthy thing to do. It sets your body in sort of
like a rhythm.
Timing. Yeah. You know, you know what to expect. What comes next.
And you were talking about sleep earlier, and I think it's also really important to eat meals at the same time. You know, breakfast might be a little bit later, lunch might be a little bit later, but it's still really important every day to eat meals throughout the day and to eat at regular times, just so your body can still stay in that same rhythm that you were talking about, correct?
And I think every family has their own structure, and hopefully you can all kind of find a way to make that work for everybody in the family, because everyone's different. Every family, you know, there are different hours that parents may work and things like that, different needs siblings may have. So whatever works for your family in setting the tone.
Yeah, and developmentally, I know that it's hard for our kids who are not supervised during the day to really follow that structure and routine for themselves without supervision. And the way that I see it is that every day is an opportunity to practice. You might not be perfect, you know, but it's really developmentally appropriate to practice those decision-making skills every day. Like, am I going to choose to stay up and play video games, or am I going to, you know, unplug the Wi-Fi and like maybe get some sleep tonight? So I know that it's a struggle probably between parents and students to find that balance. But I think for our kids, we do need to say like every day is an opportunity to practice the skills that
I like that.
Yeah, that are gonna like help you be successful, and also like we will eventually transition back. And it's going to be a really hard transition if your routine is all over the place right now.
I agree.
We need to talk about coping mechanisms.
Okay, coping mechanisms.
Being aware of your feelings.
Yes.
Yeah.
So along with what you were saying, Thary, is thinking about like being self-aware about how you're feeling. Like when I go to bed earlier and I wake up, how does that make my day go? When I follow this routine with my homework, how do my grades look? So it's sort of like kind of being aware of the consequences of the decisions that you were talking about earlier that you're making, and how do they make you feel and how do they affect yourself? And I think with that, it's it can be hard to be self-introspective, but to talk to other people about it. And I think that's also, you had mentioned being in the breakouts or the lunch groups, kind of getting a feel of how your friends are feeling too, because I think a lot of us are going through the same thing.
Yeah. I think a lot of us are feeling a lot of anxiety. With shelter in place, there's like a lot of other things happening in the world that can affect our mental health. I think it's really important to practice mindfulness at this time, because there's a lot of things that we just cannot control in the world. And being present in the moment and sort of like living in this space of accepting what's happening is not condoning what's happening. It's not saying like we agree with everything that's happening in the world. It's really saying that things are going to happen, whether we like it or not, and we still have to endure. We still have to face the world. So when you do mindfulness with students, what are the most important things to focus on? How do we keep students present in the moment?
And again, I think that's self-aware. Sometimes I think we get an overwhelming generalized feeling of anxiety, but maybe to more pinpoint, where is that coming from? Do I have a science test coming up? Do I know a family member who, maybe be getting sick? So kind of to pinpoint where that anxiety or those feelings are coming from. And like you said, it might be out of your realm of control to fix it, but just to be aware it's coming where it's coming from.
Yeah, and I think like breathing and being able to think about like, where do you feel it in your body? I feel anxiety in the pit of my stomach, but some people might feel it more in their heads. Being aware of your mind-body connection, I think, is really important. And even if you can't pinpoint exactly what is making you feel a certain way, you still want to be aware of those feelings and to recognize those feelings. I was talking to somebody the other day, and we said like a lot of our feelings are like almost like on the surface, like it's kind of can come out at any time. So just recognizing, hey, I feel really angry today, or I feel really sad, even just saying it out loud and not trying to suppress it, I think helps with the release of these emotions.
And that's a good way to control that, because you're controlling yourself and how you do express it. And figuring out what works for you. Do you need to take a break and take a walk around the block? If you have a parent or a sibling that can go with you, and maybe you don't want to talk, maybe you just want to walk. Doing something physical to kind of snap your brain sort of out of it. I was reading where wall push-ups are really good for that, 5 or 10 or whatever works for you. Just to sort of get the muscles involved and release the tension.
To like disrupt this negative thought pattern that might be happening. Like doing anything that keeps us present. I use a strategy with students sometimes too, and it's just if you want to snap yourself out of these anxious thoughts, because anxiety stems from like overthinking about the past or worrying about the future. And one of the things that we can do is by engaging all of our senses in the present moment. So what do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What can you touch? Like what was the last thing you taste? Those things are really important to disrupt those thoughts and keep yourself present.
Because they're more concrete. So along the lines of what you're saying about being mindful and aware, I think I like to call it stinking thinking, because it's the negative thoughts in our head of, I'm going to fail this, or we're going to get sick, or just getting kind of stuck or, caught up in some negative thoughts, and kind of challenging those thoughts. Are we being safe? what if I studied for science? How come I think I'm going to fail?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of challenging your own negative thoughts can kind of maybe set you on more of a realistic
Mm-hmm.
road to feeling better.
Mm-hmm. So what happens if a student tries all of the strategies and they've tried to talk to their friends and they need more support? Who can they talk to at Hoover?
At Hoover, well, they can talk. They can get in touch with me.
Mm-hmm.
They can talk to
me.
you. So they can, and you have your wellness webpage.
Yeah. So there's actually a lot of spaces for students to get support at Hoover. We have a Wellness Google Classroom. We have a student request for assistance form where students can actually directly ask for one-on-one support from a counselor, a wellness staff, or an administrator. And then somebody reaches out to that student. Counselors are still going into classes. We still have groups that are happening. We still have one-on-one counseling. And of course, like if you're, like having these thoughts, at night, there's always these emergency or like California Youth Crisis line numbers that you can call or text so that you can have somebody to talk to even at nighttime in bed. And those are 24 hours.
So there are options of people to talk to.
Yeah.
And I always like to remind people to think of like your inner circle. Do you have a sibling that you're close to? Can you talk to your mother or your father? Or do you have an auntie or, a close family friend that you can reach out to as well? We are surrounded by people that care about us and that are, that are experiencing this. We're going through this in such a broad way together. So I think there's a lot of sort of empathy and understanding out there.
And I noticed that some of our kids are really afraid to tell their parents what they're going through because of the fear of worrying their parents. But when we end up having a conversation with our students and their parents, there's more of an understanding. There's more support in middle school. It's always great for us as clinicians to align with our families and for like the whole family to sort of be involved in what's happening for the child. I think that's also really important. So a lot of parents have reached out asking for support because they're feeling overwhelmed with having to work and also managing their child's schoolwork. So what can we do to support parents and children?
Well, I think one thing is to start with is to address it. And, the teachers do have office hours. And I think parents are able to contact the teachers too if there's any concerns. But it is working together. And I think understanding the stress that the kids are all going through and sort of, I think the mantra through this whole thing is making the best of it. It may not be perfect. It may not be like it was, but what's the best you can do in this situation? And I think, realizing that we are part of a team and, if everybody gets involved, it just makes it better. I think awareness of everything is like the beginning for health.
And I also think there's opportunity in these moments. Families might be able to spend more time together. And so conversations at home don't always need to be about school.
Right.
It could just be about like how we're feeling during the day, like how are we all coping with this? Parents can even share like what they're struggling with, in an appropriate way, so that we can all know that we're in this together and that we're trying to figure this out together. So instead of, just asking kids like, why haven't you done this homework? Why are you getting this grade in this class? Like start with, hey, what's going on with you?
Yeah, because we're more than just our work. Yeah. And I like to, when I work with kids or even with my own family, can try to start with like the rose and the thorn. What's been positive about your day or your week? What hasn't been so great? And then it just starts the conversation. And again, like you mentioned, it doesn't have to be about school. It could be, I'm sick of being in the house. I need something to do. So it gets it out in the open. And, being creative with trying new things, I think, as a family. Like you said, it's kind of like, let's take this opportunity and maybe, all go for a family walk when maybe you haven't done that in a long time. So be creative.
Be creative and spend some time together when you can, if it's possible. Of course, we know that people still have different work schedules, but there is opportunities outside of the regular working day.
So I think during this time, it's also important to remind families about boundaries and rule setting at home, because the kids are home so much, and the routines have obviously changed with them not being in school. So setting limits on technology, which can be hard right now because that's what they're doing all day for academics, but trying to really engage them in other activities in the household to sort of broaden their exposure. And I think it helps them feel better if they're doing other things than just sitting and looking at a screen.
Yeah, and some of those things that I know our students are already doing are they're learning how to cook, they're learning how to bake,
Baking's been a big thing, right?
Yeah, they might be like learning how to garden with their families. I heard that a couple of times. Or if their parents have a hobby like working on cars, now is the time to like learn what your parents are into. So just engaging with each other like outside of the normal day-to-day, like just doing activities together can really strengthen the relationship. Just more time together. And yeah, like we emphasize here at Hoover that technology that we assign to students are for schoolwork. It should not be used outside of schoolwork. And so there needs to be limitations on technology outside of schoolwork. And we're already in Zoom for so many hours of the day. It's really important to limit that time outside of our Zoom meetings and classes.
And get your other juices flowing, whether you're trying to play guitar or the piano or draw. It just gives you more options for release. And I think, those can be coping mechanisms that we spoke about before as well.
Yeah, it's our students' brains at this time are very elastic, and there's like a lot of the more coping mechanisms you learn now, the better you're going to be, because you're going to have like a repertoire of different things that you can do when you're feeling a certain way, instead of just going and distracting yourself with a video game. If you find some other things that help you, then you're going to be using those other
more
things
tools
in addition.
in your toolbox.
You have a lot more tools. We always have access to paper and pencils, like we can go old school and start journaling or start drawing.
And I know a lot of students do that, and they find it very helpful.
Yeah, it's about getting our thoughts and our feelings out into the world. And sometimes those things are going to be harder to develop, so it's about teaching delayed gratification. And also I tell my students, if you don't like your parents nagging you to do certain chores, why not just do it earlier so that you avoid the nag? Eventually that you're gonna end up doing it, whether you're in a more calm state or a panic state, because you only gave yourself 30 minutes to do all of these chores and your mom's yelling at you.
And I think being open with your family too about and maybe being flexible, like, this doesn't work for me because when school's done, I don't want to wash the dishes because I need, some chill time. So if if you yell that at your parent, I think the outcome is going to be very different than if you muster up, good speaking voice and saying, can I do it at 5 o'clock or after dinner? So it's sort of working with each other to find out what works. And some things won't work.
And I think parents can also be flexible. So it's that decision making that I was talking about earlier, opportunities to make decisions. And so what needs to be done by the end of the day, and giving flexibility in when those chores can be done, so that students can feel like they are part of making that decision, and not just saying like this needs to be done now, because an argument can arise from that. So giving some flexibility and some choices in what they can do as well.
I think that's empowering also to both the parents and the students.
Yeah.
It helps you come together and just work it out. And I think that's what problem solving is all about, is presenting it and being understanding of both sides and sometimes compromising.
Yeah. These are not things that we learn overnight. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of practice.
And mistakes.
Yes, of course. And mistakes. And learning from our mistakes. And our students are going to learn more effectively when they have space to make those self-reflections on their own. And I do believe that they have the ability and the capacity to do these things.
If you touch a hot stove, you're probably, and you get burned, you're probably going to remember that and not touch that again. So it's sort of like, what do I want the outcome to be? Well, Ms. Thary, it was very nice seeing you and talking with you today. I know we've seen each other throughout the weeks on Zoom, but it's nice to see a fresh face.
Yeah, and we're able to do this because we're both wearing masks and we're staying 6 feet apart. So if you do decide to go outside, please practice good safety protocols. Thank you.
Yes. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon.